A butterfly flaps its wings, a grain of sand drifts in the wind, a gear turns in the great cosmic machine. 3 images, 3 truths, but only one question. Are you truly free? We love to believe that our choices are our own, that we are the masters of our destiny. But what if, in reality, every wing beat, every drifting grain, every ticking cog was just part of a grand mechanism set in motion long before we ever existed? What if everything you have done, everything you will ever do, was already written? Today, we dive into one of the most unsettling dilemmas in philosophy. Are we truly free, or are we passengers on a train running along invisible tracks? It all begins with a flutter. In 1963, an American meteorologist named Edward Lorenz made a discovery that would shake our understanding of predictability. While attempting to simulate weather patterns, he ran the same calculations twice. Only this time, he rounded a number down by an amount so small it seemed insignificant. A decimal changed at the 6th place after the point. Almost nothing. And yet, when he compared the results, they were completely different. A tiny shift had rewritten the entire outcome. This is how the famous metaphor was born. The flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil could, in theory, set off a tornado in Texas. Does this mean the world is governed by pure chaos? That one small action can reshape the universe? Not exactly, because while chaos seems to reign, it follows invisible laws. Consider a strange object, the double pendulum. Imagine a normal pendulum swinging back and forth. Now attach a second pendulum to the tip of the first. What happens? Complete unpredictability. If you release the double pendulum twice, under seemingly identical conditions, a shift of just a few millimeters can send it spinning in entirely different directions. This is the essence of chaos theory. Systems where tiny changes lead to massive divergences. But here's the paradox. This chaos isn't really chaotic, because if we knew everything, if we had the power to measure every force at play, every atom in motion, then we could predict every trajectory, every oscillation, every flap of a butterfly's wings. So if the universe itself operates like an enormous double pendulum, does that mean everything is already written? A butterfly flaps its wings, a grain of sand drifts, a gear turns. But what if that gear was always meant to turn? If the universe is a vast machine, then every movement, every event, every decision you make is simply the consequence of the gears that came before. Cause and effect, an unbreakable chain stretching infinitely in both directions. Right now, you might feel like you're in control. You chose to watch this video. You could stop it at any moment. You could stand up, leave, do something completely unexpected. But would you? Think about it. What led you here? A series of choices, sure. But those choices were influenced by events. Your interests shaped by past experiences. The algorithm showing you this video at just the right moment. The way your brain processed the title, the thumbnail, the words I'm saying right now. Could it be that you were always going to end up here? This is determinism, the idea that every event, no matter how small, is the inevitable result of everything that came before it. Nothing happens by accident. If you drop a rock, it will fall, not because it chooses to, but because gravity dictates it. If a storm forms, it does so because of atmospheric pressure, temperature, and wind patterns. There is no randomness, only the inevitable unfolding of physics. And what about you? What if you too are just obeying the laws of cause and effect? The philosopher Pierre-Simon Laplace imagined a thought experiment. Suppose there was a demon, a being so intelligent that it knew the position and velocity of every single particle in the universe. If such a demon existed, it could predict the past, present, and future with absolute certainty. In other words, if we knew everything, we could predict everything. That's the world Laplace saw, a clockwork universe where everything is simply a complex equation playing itself out. No mystery, no uncertainty, no real choice. And if that's true, then the moment you were born, your entire life was already set in motion, like dominoes falling in perfect sequence, one after the other, leading to this very moment. But then, if all of this is inevitable, where does that leave free will? Are we just passengers in a train, watching the scenery change, believing we could have taken another track, when in reality, there was never another track to begin with? A butterfly flaps its wings, a grain of sand drifts, a gear turns, and yet something in you resists. Because even if everything we've said is true, if your thoughts, your choices, your very existence are the echoes of a past that set them in motion, you don't feel like a prisoner. You feel alive. You feel like you choose. So, how do we reconcile this? The answer may lie with a man who saw freedom in an entirely different way. In the 17th century, Baruch Spinoza shattered the illusion that free will meant doing whatever we want. To him, that was never true freedom. It was just ignorance of what truly drives us. Everything in the universe, he said, follows strict natural laws. The planets move in their orbits, the rivers carve their paths, the trees grow toward the sun, and we, humans, are no different. We act because we are determined to act, bound by the same invisible logic that governs the rest of existence. But here's where it gets interesting. For Spinoza, the key was not to break free from determinism, because that's impossible. Instead, the only way to be truly free was to understand what determines us. The more you understand the causes of your actions, the freer you become. The more you recognize your own nature, the less you are ruled by blind impulses. Imagine a stone thrown into the air. It flies upward, but it does not resist its trajectory. It does not question why it moves as it does. It simply follows the natural course set for it. That is Spinoza's idea of freedom, not to deny the laws that govern us, but to embrace them, to align ourselves with the necessity of our nature, to see the machinery of the world for what it is, and, in that clarity, find peace. Because if we understand the forces that shape us, we can work with them instead of against them. And perhaps that is the only kind of freedom that has ever existed. But Spinoza saw freedom in knowledge. Descartes, however, saw it in something far more radical. Because what if, beyond all cause and effect, there is one thing that truly belongs to us? A butterfly flaps its wings, a grain of sand drifts, a gear turns. But what if, just for a moment, you stopped the gears? What if beyond all the forces that shape you, beyond every cause and effect, there was something that belonged only to you? In the 17th century, while Spinoza was untangling the web of necessity, another man was staring into the void, René Descartes, a thinker so radical that he questioned everything, even his own existence. He asked himself a terrifying question: what if nothing is real? What if everything I see, everything I hear, everything I believe is an illusion? The world could be a dream. The people around me could be figments of my imagination. Even my own body might not exist. But in that spiral of doubt, he found one unshakable truth. If I doubt, then I am thinking. If I am thinking, then I must exist. Cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. It didn't matter if the world was real or an illusion. Something, somewhere, was experiencing it. And that something was him. It was a desperate gamble, a last stand against determinism, against the possibility that he was nothing more than a machine responding to its programming. Because if everything was an illusion, then what was the part of him that could recognize it as an illusion? What was the voice inside his mind, the one that could question, doubt, reflect? This is where Descartes split the world in two. The body was part of nature, a machine like any other, governed by the same laws as the stars and the stones. But the mind was something different, something untouchable. It did not follow the laws of physics. It was not bound by gravity or motion or inertia. It existed in a space beyond cause and effect. And if that was true, then somewhere deep inside you, there is a part of you that is not just a gear in the machine, a part of you that thinks, a part of you that chooses. But there was a problem, because if Descartes was right, if the mind is separate from the body, then how do they interact? How does thought become action? How does a decision, something immaterial, make muscles move, make lungs breathe, make a hand reach out into the world? For centuries, philosophers and scientists have tried to answer this. Maybe the mind is just an illusion, a byproduct of the brain, an echo of neurons firing in perfect sequence. Or maybe, just maybe, there is something more, something science has not yet grasped, something hidden in the smallest particles of the universe, and that is where physics enters the debate. A butterfly flaps its wings, a grain of sand drifts, a gear turns. But in the smallest spaces of the universe, the gears don't turn as they should. For centuries, we believed the universe was a great machine, a clockwork cosmos, governed by laws as precise and unyielding as the ticking of a watch. If you knew the position of every atom, the force behind every movement, you could predict everything, past, present, and future. But then something shattered that certainty. In the early 20th century, physicists peered into the quantum world, the world of the unimaginably small, and what they found defied all logic. Particles did not behave like tiny billiard balls, bouncing predictably from one place to another. They flickered in and out of existence. They moved as waves and particles at the same time. They could be in two places at once until they were observed. And worse still, their behavior was not just unknown, but unknowable. Werner Heisenberg, one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics, formulated a principle that shook the foundations of determinism, the uncertainty principle. At the quantum level, Heisenberg discovered that you can never know both the position and the velocity of a particle with absolute certainty. The more precisely you measure one, the less you can know about the other. It wasn't a limitation of technology. It wasn't that we just weren't smart enough to figure it out. It was a fundamental truth about reality itself. The universe, at its core, is not a perfect machine. It is unpredictable. It is probabilistic. And suddenly, determinism, the idea that the future is set in stone, was no longer unshakable. Because at the most basic level of existence, things do not always follow strict cause and effect. There is an element of true randomness. But does this mean we are free? Not necessarily, because randomness is not the same as choice. A roll of the dice is uncertain, but it is not an act of will. A particle's movement may be unknowable, but it does not mean it decides where to go. And so, the question remains, if our thoughts and decisions are just the result of neurons firing, and if neurons are made of particles, and if those particles are bound by quantum uncertainty, does that give us freedom, or does it simply replace an unbreakable fate with a chaos we do not control? Maybe the answer is not in physics. Maybe it is in something else. Maybe the answer has always been within us. A butterfly flaps its wings, a grain of sand drifts, a gear turns. And you, where do you stand? For centuries, we have searched for an answer. We have looked to physics, to philosophy, to the deepest mechanisms of the mind. We have argued that we are machines, that we are spirits, that we are something in between. And yet, after all this, the question lingers. Are we free? Spinoza would say no, but he would also say that understanding this truth is the only freedom we will ever have. Descartes would fight for the mind, claiming that no matter how inevitable our actions seem, something inside us remains untouchable. Quantum physics would suggest that the universe itself is unpredictable, but unpredictability is not the same as choice. So where does that leave us? Maybe freedom is not about breaking the laws of the universe. Maybe it is not about escaping the web of cause and effect. Maybe it was never about choosing differently at all. Maybe freedom is something deeper. At this point, spiritual teachings can help us break out of this impasse and expand the debate. Thich Nhat Hanh, a renowned Buddhist monk and teacher of mindfulness, would tell you that true freedom is not found in the outside world, but in awareness. It is in our ability to be present with what is, without distractions. The real prison, he would say, is not the universe, nor the past, nor even the mind. The real prison lies in our conditioning, the habits and distractions that keep us from seeing life as it truly is. We believe we are free, but we often move through life like sleepwalkers, unaware of the moment we're in. Our choices are shaped by past fears and desires that aren't even ours. Like the butterfly caught in a storm, we are tossed around by forces we think we can't control. But true freedom, Thich Nhat Hanh would remind us, is not about changing the past or rewriting the future. It's about waking up to the present moment. It's about embracing life as it is and letting go of the stories we tell ourselves about who we should be and how things should unfold. Just as a river flows without resistance and a stone follows its path due to gravity, you have the ability to see and accept what is happening right now. This awareness is your true freedom. If the past has written your story, then you are free to read it in a way no one else can. If the butterfly was always meant to flap its wings, if the grain of sand was always meant to drift, if the gear was always meant to turn, then maybe the real question isn't whether you are free. Maybe the real question is, can you wake up to the freedom of this very moment? Because whether you're free or not, this moment is yours. And if you're still with me after all this deep thinking, don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button. You might just wake up to even more thought-provoking content. Your mind will thank you later. See you soon. Your old pal.